What do you do with a bully coworker when the boss refuses to hold them accountable? That's the issue my next caller is dealing with, and I walk her through a few strategies to hopefully improve the situation. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to hear me coach more live callers just like this one. Jenna, welcome to the show. How can I help you today?
Hi, I'm just calling because I'm really struggling with a colleague at work, actually, and I was hoping to do about that.
Sure. What's going on?
Well, we're both at a director level at an institution, an educational institution, and we're supposed to be professionals. However, I just noticed a lot of times there is almost a bully mentality coming to the table, as in over-talking or shooting down ideas and stepping out of their roles and responsibilities. However, there's no reasoning with this person, and it almost seems like it's ego-driven. So I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate somebody with a very big ego that has been spoken to several times regarding staying in their lane, but still chooses not to do so.
Okay, so is it a he or she, or?
It's a man.
He is at the same level as you. He's not your supervisor, but he kind of approaches you with sort of a bullying attitude, talks over you, etc.
Well, it's not just me, it's everybody.
Oh.
Because we are colleagues and at the same level, yeah, I do have to frequently work with this individual. We both report into the same boss as well.
Has it always been like this? I mean, has he always had this sort of attitude or approach?
We've worked together maybe 3 years, and I've noticed that I would say in the past year, he seems to be really bitter with the organization and with his team that he manages. So I noticed that there's been a lot of relationship breakdowns. And I do think, like, from the outside looking in, I think it's a skill set deficit. And because a lot of things are starting to crumble, he's acting out, but he's always been domineering and very ego-driven. And it's hard because there's no way to rationalize with this person. Or if I speak to them, they're doing the same thing like a month later. So they're frustrating, that's for sure.
Yeah, it sounds really frustrating. But you've taken different approaches. You've tried to talk with him. It seems like you're getting through, and then all of a sudden he just reverts back to the old pattern, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it does impact the team as a whole. Like, everybody's pretty fed up, I guess you would say. I even have to work at home on plan to avoid this person because
Wow.
it's very disruptive. But I do notice too that our boss tends to protect this individual and lets a lot slide. But however, I don't know the conversations that occur in the background. So
have you had a conversation with your boss who you report to and he reports to about this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I spoke to him a few times, especially if it's behavior that crosses the line, like raising your voice or sending a nasty message in a meeting. Or a lot of times my boss has witnessed openly trying to speak for my department or shooting down ideas that are evidently logical and make sense, but it's an ego thing. So yeah, I've spoken to my boss up recently this week too, when he approached me at my office and had raised his voice and was all red-faced and yelling about staying in lane and stuff. So yeah, my boss is aware, and I'm just very surprised. I think he has a lot more, I guess you would say, forgiveness for this individual than a lot of us. So I don't understand. He did tell me that he was going through personal stuff, but I do think that is something that a lot of people probably have going on at home.
Yeah.
We should show up a little bit better and consistently.
Not being able to hold someone accountable for poor behavior is just going to start really lowering other people's morale. And it gives the sense that there is no accountability there. A lot of times in these kinds of situations where you don't hold someone accountable for poor behavior, then the people that are high performers or, a good culture fit end up leaving because they don't want to be around that sort of toxicity. So it's unfortunate. If you were to ask your boss directly, I don't know if you've done this already, but if you're able to ask your boss directly, number one, do you understand that this person's behavior is negatively affecting many other people to the point where we're considering maybe not staying here? Do you recognize that? And do you think that your boss would say, yes, I recognize that?
Yeah, he does understand that. I truly believe. And I think he knows, because he doesn't just hear about it from me, he hears about it from others as well. And his solution was he feels that this person should just vent to him and not everybody else, which isn't really a rational solution because it's not hitting. I like my boss, but he's like 63 or 64, so more like old school. And I think because this individual holds so much technical knowledge. So it doesn't make them a leader, but because they're good with technical knowledge, I think there's a bit of a letting that knowledge go. So therefore we let lots of things slide.
Yeah. Can you, I mean, this is common. So like, we're afraid to get rid of this person because if we do, we'll have to replace them. It's very hard to replace them and all that stuff. So he's sort of holding the organization hostage with his knowledge base. And that's not a good situation to have. Maybe you or a collective of people, like 4 or 5 of you together, going to your boss and saying, here's the situation. We know it's hard to let this person go, or we need to know it's hard to hold them accountable or give them serious consequences if the behavior continues. But here's what we're prepared to do if nothing changes. So you have to make a decision now. If you don't hold this person accountable, if nothing changes on the behavior, here's what the consequences of that looks like. So that way, at least maybe your boss or whomever, maybe someone above your boss, has to make a decision of like, okay, well, we could either not hold this person accountable, let him continue to behave this way, and that has certain consequences, or hold him accountable, maybe let him go if it doesn't change, and that has certain consequences. But at least we understand now the sort of trajectory of both choices. Because right now it seems like there's no consequences for the organization if they just allow this behavior to continue. So if they know that there are consequences, then maybe they might make a different decision. Do you think that's possible to lay it out like that with maybe a few different people together?
Yeah, I think the worry is I've seen employees come forward before with kind of like their imaginary, war behind them, or like several individuals signing a letter to say whatever, or CCing people on email. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on individualizing complaints versus doing a group complaint? Like, do you feel that's also toxic behavior in the workplace, or do you think that is okay sometimes?
To me, I think it's appropriate when the individual approach doesn't work. I think the individual approach is the great first step, but multiple people coming and saying the same thing and nothing is changing, nothing's happening. I think the next step is to use a collective. So I think that's absolutely important.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And like, I have had thoughts of saying, if this doesn't change, then I'm going to have to escalate this to the HR department or the harassment office if I'm continued to be yelled at in my office with someone swearing and carrying.
So taking a collective approach is important. And also, basically, if you are in a toxic work environment or a hostile work environment and nobody's doing anything, even though they've been talked to about it, you need to start documenting everything. You need to start writing down when the incidents happen, who's around you, all that stuff, and hand it to HR. So there needs to be a paper trail. And there's a building of a case now at some point, because if nobody's holding anyone accountable for this kind of behavior, that's not going to be good for the organization, certainly not good for you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Thank you.
The strategy potentially, hopefully, is you take the collective approach, you let them know what the trajectory of both choices are so they understand their decisions here. And then the other approach is starting to document everything and handing it over to HR. I always suggest going directly to the person, having a conversation, trying to build a relationship, going directly to your boss, having that individual conversation. But if all that stuff doesn't work, then it's like, we need to go to the next step here. And I think that's where you're at.
Okay. No, thank you. That really helps align my thoughts. And I appreciate your time on this.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks, Jen. I appreciate it. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Peacebuilding with Dr. Pollack show. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more workplace conflict advice. Share on social media if you think your friends and colleagues would benefit from this episode. And if you have a workplace conflict and want to be a caller on our show, for free coaching and advice, please email podcast@pollackpeacebuilding.com. Thanks.